1. We're checking out this absolutely rad 1973 Ford F100 that just popped up on Craigslist for $11,500. And let me tell you, this is one interesting piece of American muscle. This short bed beauty has quite a story to tell. Coming straight from its original owners and being a Southern truck, it's managed to dodge the rust bullet that usually plagues these classics. That's seriously impressive for a 50-year-old truck. The body's staying true to its original form, which is becoming harder to find these days. But here's where it gets really exciting. Under the hood, this F100 is packing some serious heat. We're talking about a 390 engine paired with a C6 transmission, and the previous owner wasn't messing around with the performance upgrades. They've loaded it up with some top-shelf parts: Edelbrock aluminum heads and intake, a 750 Holley double pumper, MSD6A ignition system, and those sweet headers with dual Flowmaster exhaust that probably makes this thing sound absolutely incredible. The Detroit Locker Posey rear end means this truck can put all that power down properly. And those American racing rims add a perfect period-correct touch to the overall look. Now, being completely honest with you all, the seller mentions it could use some finishing touches for a full restoration, but you could totally drive it as is. At $11,500, considering the solid foundation and all those performance parts already installed, you're looking at a pretty interesting opportunity here. These F100s are climbing in value, especially clean Southern examples like this one. 2. We're looking at a pretty interesting 1972 GMC Sierra Grande that's popped up for $12,000. And I've got to say, this one's got some charm to it. Let's be real here. This is a survivor with an honest story. We're looking at a two-owner truck with just 71,000 miles on the clock, which is pretty remarkable for a 50-year-old workhorse. It's rocking that classic green paint job, though it's worth noting this isn't the original paint, and the seller's being upfront about some dents in the bed that weren't addressed during the repaint. Under the hood, you're getting the straight 6 engine paired with an automatic transmission. Not the most powerful combo, but these are known for their reliability and simplicity. The seller says it's running strong with no leaks, and the heat works well, always a plus in an old truck. Now, let's talk about the condition honestly. There's some wear and tear you'd expect from a truck this age. The dash has a crack, pretty common for these. But hey, the radio still works. The interior is described as clean, though showing its age. It's a Tennessee truck, which typically means better preservation than northern vehicles. What's really cool is it comes with a set of original GMC wheels alongside the ones currently mounted with new tires. That's a nice bonus for authenticity lovers. For $12,000, you're getting a running, driving piece of American truck history that's been well preserved, but not over-restored. It's got its imperfections, but that's part of its character. This is the kind of truck that could be a great daily driver or a gradual restoration project while still being usable. 3. We're checking out something really special, a 1954 Ford F100 that's listed for $19,000. And let me tell you, these early F-Series trucks are becoming increasingly hard to find, especially in good condition. This particular F100 is sporting a beautiful blue paint job and, according to the seller, has an excellent body, which is pretty remarkable for a nearly 70-year-old truck. Under the hood, it's keeping things original with the stock inline-6 engine, paired with a 4-speed manual transmission with the shifter on the floor. That's the kind of pure mechanical connection you just don't get in modern vehicles. Now let's talk about that odometer reading of 369, the seller's being upfront that it's rolled over, so we're likely looking at 103,069 miles or more. But hey, that's just breaking in for these old workhorses. A nice bonus is the locking bed cover, which adds some practical utility to this classic. The listing is pretty brief, but what's shown suggests this is a well-preserved example. At $19,000, you're looking at an investment in a piece of American automotive history that's been steadily appreciating in value. These 54 F100s are particularly sought after for their iconic design, that classic big-fendered look that defined an era. It's worth noting that while the seller describes it as excellent, potential buyers should always inspect classic vehicles in person. These trucks are old enough that even well-maintained examples might need some attention here and there. 4. We're diving into a sweet piece of Chevrolet history, a 1968 C10 short bed that's popped up on Craigslist for $2,800. And this one's got some serious appeal. Let me tell you why this truck is special. First off, it's an Arizona truck, which is basically the holy grail for classic vehicle hunters. The seller claims zero rust, and coming from AZ, that's totally believable. These desert trucks are what everyone dreams of finding. Factory short beds are particularly desirable, and this one looks like it's been preserved beautifully. Now let's talk about what's under the hood. We're looking at a fresh 350 V8 paired with a new turbo 400 transmission. That's a bulletproof combination that'll give you plenty of reliable power. The seller's gone through and replaced all the brake lines and components, which is a major plus because brake work on these old trucks can be a real headache. Some nice touches include buddy bucket seats, a comfortable upgrade from the original bench, and a relocated fuel tank, which is a popular mod for these C10s. The odometer shows 25,000 miles, though on a classic like this, that number's less important than the overall condition. At $28,500, we're definitely in the upper range for C10s, but considering it's a rust-free Arizona truck with fresh mechanicals, it could be worth it for the right buyer. These 6772 C10s have been shooting up in value, especially clean short beds like this one. 5. We're checking out a pretty interesting 1972 Chevy K10 Custom 4X4 that's listed for $16,000, and this one's got a story to tell. This is a genuine farm find, folks, a 3-owner K10 showing 141,000 miles on the clock. Under the hood, you're getting the classic 350 V8, which is pretty much the gold standard for these trucks. One cool feature that really speaks to its working truck heritage is the dual auxiliary gas tanks. Perfect for those long days out in the field. Now, while the seller describes it as excellent, I've got to keep it real with you. The listing is pretty sparse on details. We're looking at a white paint job, but without more information about recent maintenance, restoration work, or specific condition details, you'll definitely want to give this one a thorough inspection in person. The asking price of $16,000 puts it in an interesting spot in the market. These 6772 Chevy trucks, especially 4Fork4 models, have been climbing in value, but you'll want to verify its condition to ensure it matches the price tag. Being a farm truck could mean it's either been well maintained as a valuable tool or worked hard. That's something you'll need to determine in person. What makes this K10 intriguing is its originality and the fact it's a 444 model, which is generally more desirable than the 2WD versions. These trucks are known for their durability and simple mechanics, making them great candidates for both restoration and regular use. 6. We're looking at something pretty unique, a 2-for-1 deal on 1966 Chevy C20 long beds for $22,000, and this listing is seriously interesting. Let's break this down, because there's a lot to unpack here. The star of the show is truck number 1, and folks, this isn't your grandpa's work truck anymore. We're talking about a 454 big block that's been built up with a Crower cam, Holley carb, and Sanderson headers. This thing probably sounds absolutely wicked. The transmission setup is equally impressive with a deep sump 400 turbo backed by a US gear overdrive unit and a 4.10 Detroit locker rear end to put all that power down. They've thought about reliability too. It's got electric trans and engine oil coolers, a desert cooler system, and they've upgraded to power disc brakes up front with those heavy-duty 8-lug hubs. The modern digital gauges are a nice touch for keeping tabs on that big block. Now, truck number 2 is essentially a parts donor, but it's still a complete running truck with a small block Chevy and a 350 turbo trans. Plus, the deal includes a treasure trove of new reproduction parts, doors, fenders, radiator support, oak bed wood and rails, floor pans, chrome bumper, all the weather stripping you need, and more. At $22,000 for everything, you're essentially getting a hot-rodded C20 with all the spares you could need, plus a complete parts truck. For someone looking to build their dream C20, this could be a goldmine of parts and possibilities. The seller's being firm about not splitting it up or selling parts, and honestly, I get it. This is a comprehensive package that makes sense together. These C20s are getting harder to find, especially in complete form, and having a parts truck is like having an insurance policy for your project. 7. We're looking at a pretty honest 1979 Ford F-150 that's up for grabs at $5,000, and let me tell you why this one's interesting. First off, we're looking at the legendary 300 cubic inch inline 6, paired with a 4-speed manual that includes a granny gear. That's a combination that's known for being practically bulletproof. The seller's been using this as their daily driver for 8 years, which says a lot about its reliability. Now, let's keep it real here. This truck's got some character marks. There's rust in the usual spots these old Fords tend to get, including a pinhole in the driver's floor. But here's the good news. The frame is solid, which is the most important thing on these old trucks. What makes this F-150 appealing is all the recent maintenance work. We're talking about a long list of new parts: aluminum radiator, brake components, fuel pump, alternator, carb, distributor, basically all the important stuff that keeps these trucks running. The sellers even kept most of the receipts, which is always a good sign of a well-maintained vehicle. The odometer shows 21,000 miles, but on a 79, we can safely assume it's rolled over at least once. The orange paint gives it that classic 70s vibe, and with those decent tread tires, it's ready to hit the road. Only immediate needs are an oil change and maybe front brake pads. Pretty minor stuff for a 44-year-old truck. At $5,000 or best offer, you're looking at a lot of usable classic truck for the money. These old Ford trucks are simple, reliable, and parts are readily available. Plus, that 300 inline 6 is known for running forever with basic maintenance. 8. We're checking out something seriously special, a 1967 Ford Ranchero that's listed for $27,900, and folks, this isn't your average car-truck hybrid. Let me tell you why this Ranchero is absolutely wild. First off, it underwent a complete restoration just 2 years ago and has only seen 1,500 miles since then. But the real story here is what's under the hood. We're talking about a 408Ci stroker motor built with some serious hardware, scat rotating assembly, AFR heads, and a comp roller cam setup. Topped with a dual quad intake running twin Holleys, this thing must absolutely scream. The power gets put down through a rebuilt Ford AOD transmission, great choice for both performance and cruising, and a bulletproof 9-inch rear end with strange 350 Posey and 31 spline axles. That's serious muscle car territory right there. They didn't skip on the comfort and handling either. You're getting power steering, manual disc brakes all around, and a completely rebuilt front suspension with a new steering box. The vintage Air AC system means you can cruise in comfort, and that custom carbon fiber dash pad with new gauges adds a modern touch to the classic interior. Everything's been thought through on this build, from the custom flush-fitting fuel door to the refinished chrome and trim. The new paint looks stunning, and the fresh upholstery ties it all together perfectly. At $27,900, you're looking at a turnkey resto mod that's ready to show and go. The combination of classic 67 Ranchero style with modern performance upgrades makes this a unique offering in today's market. These Rancheros are getting harder to find, especially ones built to this level. 9. We're looking at a 1977 GMC Sierra that's caught my eye, priced at $4,000, and I've got to keep it real with you about this one. First off, this is a dealership listing, which is always something to note. They're advertising it as a classic with the mighty 454 7.4L V8 under the hood, showing 65,174 miles on the clock. The price point is definitely attention-grabbing. $4,000 for a running, driving classic truck with a big block is pretty tempting. But here's where I need to be straight with you all. The listing is pretty light on actual details. While they claim it runs and drives great and is in good condition, there's no mention of maintenance history, recent work, or specific condition details. The enthusiastic caps lock and dealership-style pitch should make any savvy buyer want to look extra carefully. At this price point for a 77 Sierra with a 454, you'll definitely want to do your homework. These trucks are known for typical late 70s issues like rust, worn interiors, and thirsty engines. The 454 is a powerhouse when running right, but it can be expensive to maintain and repair if things go wrong. For $4,000, this could either be a decent deal on a classic work truck, or it might need some love to get it where you want it. They're offering financing, but remember, old trucks often come with old truck problems, so factor that into your decision. 10. We're diving into something special. A 1971 Chevy C10 short bed that's listed for $27,500, and this isn't your average work truck anymore. This is clearly a build that's been given the full hot rod treatment. Let's start with the aesthetics. We're looking at a murdered-out black beauty with some serious custom touches. They've shaved the door handles for that clean look, added a French tailgate with a wing, and those tubbed wheel wells tell you this truck means business. The LED taillights and tinted windows add a modern touch to the classic lines. Under the hood, you've got a 350 small block Chevy V8 with an MSD6A digital ignition system, pushing power through an automatic transmission. The dual exhaust system probably makes this thing sound absolutely wicked. They've upgraded to power disc brakes at all 4 corners, which is a smart move considering the potential performance. The interior's been given plenty of attention too. You're getting a leather sport bench seat with a cooler center console. That's a nice blend of comfort and practicality. The insulated cab shows they were thinking about comfort and noise reduction. With 93,305 miles on the clock, this C10 has been built to be driven, not just shown. The new wheels and tires complete the Pro Street look, and that tubbed rear end suggests this truck can handle some serious rubber. At $27,500, you're looking at a turnkey custom C10 that's ready to hit the streets or the shows. These 6772 C10s are highly sought after, and this one's got the right mix of modifications to stand out from the crowd. 11. We're looking at something pretty rare. A 1975 Dodge Power Wagon Avenger 4X4 short bed that's listed for $14,500, and let me tell you why this one's special. First off, this is a California truck purchased from the original owner, which is already a big deal. Being a California truck usually means better preservation, and being pre-smog means no emissions testing headaches. The seller claims it's rust-free, which is huge for these old Dodges. Now, let's talk about what makes this truck unique. Short bed power wagons from this era are seriously rare finds. Under the hood, it's been upgraded with a 440 engine, which is a massive power upgrade from the original motor. It's got an automatic transmission and 4x4 capability, making it a proper off-road capable machine. But let's keep it real here. The seller's being honest about some needs. It could use a new carburetor and has some electrical gremlins that need sorting out. They say it's drivable as is, but these are issues you'll want to address. The interior, well, this is where it gets interesting. The seller mentions 70s flair, and apparently, the original owner was eccentric with their choices. There are extras that could be removed, but they're leaving it as is for the next owner to decide what stays and what goes. At $14,500, you're looking at a pretty unique piece of Dodge truck history. These short bed power wagons are getting harder to find, especially California examples with no rust. The 440 swap adds some serious muscle to the equation, though you'll need to factor in the cost of sorting out those carb and electrical issues. 12. We're looking at something really special. A 1957 Ford F100 that's listed for $27,000. And this isn't your average old truck, folks. This is a beautifully executed resto mod that blends classic style with modern reliability. Let's dive into what makes this build so impressive. Under the hood, you're getting a 5.0 V8 with an electronic distributor, topped with Edelbrock intake and carb, all wrapped up in a modern serpentine belt system. That's a perfect combination of old-school power with modern dependability. The attention to detail here is outstanding. They've tackled all the usual classic truck headaches. There's ice-cold AC with dual fans to keep things cool, power steering using a Toyota column, smart upgrade, front disc brakes, and they've relocated the gas tank to the rear for better safety and weight distribution. The transmission's got a shift kit, so you know it's built to handle the power. The body is described as super straight with original panels, and they've maintained that classic F100 style while adding modern touches like those 18-chip Foose wheels. Those 51 Pontiac taillights are a cool custom touch. Everything's been rewired, crucial in an old truck, and all the gauges are modern ProComp units that actually work. Inside, it's all fresh, new upholstery, carpet, headliner, and they've added seatbelts for safety. The weather stripping's all new, the windows work smoothly, and the doors open and close properly. These might sound like small details, but anyone who's owned an old truck knows how important these things are. At $27,000, you're looking at a turnkey classic that's been thoughtfully modified to be actually usable while maintaining its vintage charm. These 57 F100s are highly sought after, and this one's been built right. 13. We're checking out a 1956 Ford F100 that's listed for $24,000, and let me give you the straight scoop on this classic. This one's rocking the original Y-Block 292 V8 that's been rebuilt, paired with a Ford-O-Matic 3-speed automatic transmission. For those who might not know, the 292 Y-Block was a solid engine for its time, though not as commonly seen today as some other Ford V8s. The seller reports 18,000 miles on the rebuild, which is a decent amount of break-in time. Now let's keep it real here. The listing is pretty brief, which means there's a lot we'd want to verify in person. It's described as a good-looking truck in gray paint, and they've added some modern convenience with electric windows, which is a nice touch for daily usability. Being a California truck is definitely a plus. These trucks tend to fare better in the dry climate. The title's clean and the tags are current, which is always good news with a classic. At $24,000, you're in the market for a driver-quality 56 F100. These trucks have been steadily appreciating, but you'll definitely want to inspect everything carefully. The seller's description is pretty basic, so you'd want to check the usual trouble spots: floor pans, cab corners, bed condition, and make sure that rebuilt Y-Block is running as it should. 14. We're looking at something pretty interesting. A 1979 Chevy C30 Dually that's listed for $8,500, and this isn't your average old truck. What makes this one special is that it's a California truck with original blue plates, and it's got some serious work truck credentials. Under the hood, you've got the trusty 350 V8 paired with a 4-speed manual transmission, but here's the cool part. It's got a PTO, power takeoff, with a working hydraulic dump bed. That's a feature that could make this truck seriously useful for the right buyer. Now let's keep it real here. The seller's being pretty honest about its condition. While it fires right up, it hasn't seen road time in a while and is riding on old tires. They mention it needs a tune-up and some TLC, so you'll want to factor that into your plans. With 100,000 miles showing, that's actually not bad for a work truck of this vintage. Being a California truck is definitely a plus, as these old workhorses often suffered badly from rust in other regions. The Cheyenne trim level was a nice package back in the day, offering more comfort features than the base models. At $8,500, you're looking at a potentially solid platform for either restoration or putting it back to work. These C30 Dualis are getting harder to find, especially with working dump beds and manual transmissions. 15. We're looking at a 1977 Ford F-150 Ranger that's listed for $6,500, and I've got to be straight with you about this one. First off, I noticed there's some confusion in the listing. They've got it marked at both $6,500 and $9,688, and a lot of the basic specs are missing, which is always something to pay attention to. No engine specs, transmission details, or fuel type listed. That's information you'll definitely want to verify in person. What we do know is that it's a Ranger trim level F-150, which was a nice package for its time, offering more comfort features than the base model. The odometer shows 98,617 miles, which for a truck of this age could mean 198,617 or more. These old odometers typically rolled over at 100,000. Now I've got to keep it real with you all. This listing is pretty sparse on details. When you see a classic truck listing with this many blank fields, you'll want to ask plenty of questions and inspect everything carefully. These late 70s F-150s can be great trucks when well maintained, but they're also old enough to have typical age-related issues like rust, worn interiors, and mechanical needs. At $6,500, if that's the correct price, you're in the ballpark for a driver-quality 77 F-150, but you'll definitely want to see what you're getting into. These trucks are getting more popular with collectors, but condition is everything. 16. We're looking at something pretty unique. A 1976 Chevy LUV pickup listed at $17,900, and I've got to share some thoughts about this one. First off, this is a dealership listing, and while they emphasize being family-owned and quality-focused, I notice they haven't provided many specific details about this particular truck. What's really interesting, and needs clarification, is that it's listed with a V8, which is definitely not original, as these LUVs came with 4-cylinder engines from the factory. This suggests it's been modified, which could be either awesome or concerning, depending on the quality of work. The odometer showing 369 miles is likely either rolled over or reflects miles since a rebuild or modification. These Chevy LUVs were actually Isuzu-built trucks that Chevrolet rebadged, and they're becoming increasingly rare, especially in good condition. At $17,900, this is definitely premium pricing for a LUV pickup. While these trucks have a growing following among collectors, you'd want to thoroughly inspect the modifications and overall condition to justify this price point. The blue paint looks clean in the listing, but with any 47-year-old vehicle, you'll want to check all the usual trouble spots. The dealer's emphasis on low ownership and local vehicles is nice, but remember, this is a significantly modified vehicle from its original form if it indeed has a V8 swap. 17. We're looking at a 1971 GMC pickup that's listed for around $30,000, and I've got to be really honest with you about this listing. First off, this is a dealership listing, and I've got to say, it's surprisingly light on details for a truck with this price tag. They're advertising it as a low-mileage example with just 11,685 miles on the odometer. But on a 52-year-old truck, we'd really need some documentation to verify if those are original miles. What's particularly concerning is the lack of basic information. There's no mention of the engine type, transmission, or any mechanical details. Even the interior color is listed as no color, which is interesting. The VIN number shown also looks unusual with those leading zeros, so that's something you'd want to verify. The truck appears to be blue, and being a 71 model, it's from the highly desirable 67-72 GMC Chevy truck generation. These trucks have been climbing in value, but at $30,000, you'd expect a lot more information about the condition, history, and specifications. For this kind of money, you're in the territory of well-restored or highly original examples of these classic GMCs. Without more details about the truck's condition, modifications, or history, it's hard to judge if the price is justified. 18. We're looking at a 1969 Chevy C20 listed for $20,000, and I've got to point out some interesting things about this listing. First off, there are some red flags in the data that we need to address. The listing shows this as a FWD, front-wheel drive vehicle, which is definitely incorrect. These C20s were all rear-wheel drive. Also, it lists 0 SIL for the engine, which is obviously a mistake. These trucks typically came with either a straight 6 or V8 engine, and being a C20, 3.4 ton, it likely had one of the larger engine options from the factory. The truck's showing 78,697 miles, and wears a white and green two-tone paint scheme, which could be original colors for these trucks. The automatic transmission would have likely been a turbo-hydromatic, which was common for these models. Now, I've got to keep it real with you. This listing is missing a lot of crucial information. For $20,000, you'd want to know exactly what engine is actually in it, its condition, any restoration work done, and the overall mechanical state. These 67-72 Chevy trucks are highly desirable, but condition is everything at this price point. The C20 is the 3.4-ton version of Chevy's pickup line, which means it was built tougher than the C10s, with heavier duty components throughout. These make great restoration candidates or workhorses depending on your plans. 19. We're checking out a pretty sweet 1968 El Camino that's listed for $25,000, and this one's got some interesting upgrades worth talking about. First off, this is a West Coast vehicle, which is always a good start for these classics. Under the hood, we're looking at a 350 V8 that's been dressed up with some solid performance parts. Holley carb, Edelbrock intake and valve covers, and an MSD ignition system. They've also addressed cooling with an aluminum radiator and dual electric fans, which is smart thinking for a modified setup. The drivetrain's running a 3-speed automatic with a B&M shifter, and they've added power steering for better drivability. The AC is a huge plus. Not all of these had it, and it makes a big difference in usability. Those polished accessory pulleys add some nice shine to the engine bay too. Now, being a dealer listing, you'll want to verify everything in person, but they're claiming it runs, drives, and stops well. The blue exterior with black interior is a classic combo, and they've modernized the interior experience with a CD player and aftermarket gauges. At $25,000, you're in the market for a nicely modified 68 El Camino. These car-truck hybrids have a strong following, and the 68 is from a particularly desirable generation. The modifications seem thoughtfully done, focusing on both performance and reliability. 20. We're looking at a really interesting 1984 Chevy K20 listed for $15,000, and I've got to say, this seller's honesty is refreshing. Let's dive into what makes this square body special. Under the hood, you've got a Goodwrench Crate 350 with a Holley Sniper EFI setup. That's a serious upgrade from the original carbureted setup, offering modern reliability and easy starts. The 700R4 transmission is fresh from AMCO with receipts. Always good to see documentation, and it's got the reliable NP208 transfer case. This K20's sitting pretty on 37 BFG KO2s with heavy-duty leaf springs and Rancho shocks, and you're getting 3 spare wheels and tires. That's a nice bonus. The seller's done some smart upgrades like LED headlights and a steering stabilizer. Now, let's keep it real about the issues. The seller's being super transparent here. You've got a broken vent window, only one fuel tank hooked up, though both tanks are good, and some climate control quirks. The power windows work, but are slow. New motors and regulators come with the truck, and the power locks are getting weak. What's impressive is all the recent maintenance. New rear brakes with receipts, fresh fluids all around, new heater core, and 0 leaks reported. The interior's described as decent for its age, and most gauges work. Coolant temp shows on the Holley display. At $15,000, or best offer, you're looking at a well-maintained and thoughtfully modified K20 that just needs some finishing touches. These square-body Chevys are getting more popular, and this one's got good bones with some nice upgrades.